Have you ever wondered who is truly behind the founding of the Catholic Church? Beyond what many believe, the story of its origin is filled with fascinating events, key figures, and decisions that shaped one of the most influential institutions in the world. In this video, we will explore the true origins of the Catholic Church, unraveling myths and revealing the truth behind its creation. Get ready for a historical journey full of surprises that will change your perspective. Don't miss it. Investigating the official history, we are told that the Catholic Church has its roots firmly planted in the soil of early Christianity, a faith born from the legacy of Jesus Christ and his apostles. After the crucifixion of Jesus, his disciples spread his teachings throughout the Roman Empire, facing brutal persecution and constant challenges. For centuries, Christianity was viewed as a rebellious sect that defied the power of Rome and the pagan religions that dominated the time. But this is where the story becomes complicated. How did a small group, without military or political power, manage to survive and prosper, eventually becoming the official religion of the most powerful empire in the world? Was it simply the charisma of the Christian message that allowed for this rise? Or were hidden forces working behind the scenes to change the course of religious history? One of the most important figures in this process was Emperor Constantine, whose role in the consolidation of the Catholic Church remains surrounded by controversy. Before his rise, Christianity was fragmented into various beliefs and interpretations. Many theologians and historians believe Constantine saw in Christianity an opportunity to unite the empire under one religion, which could strengthen his control over the vast and turbulent provinces of Rome. Constantine was not just an emperor, he was a skilled political strategist. His famous Edict of Milan, issued in 313 AD, guaranteed religious freedom throughout the Roman Empire. But the real turning point occurred at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. At this council, Constantine called bishops from all over the empire to discuss the uniformity of Christian doctrine. It was here that the embryo of the Catholic Church as we know it today was born. But why did Constantine, who had previously worshipped pagan gods, decide to return to Christianity? Did he really convert after his famous vision of the cross before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, or was it all part of a carefully orchestrated plan to use Christianity as a tool for control? Ancient documents and political reports suggest that Constantine may have manipulated the beliefs of early Christians to consolidate his power. Some speculate that he did not see Christianity as a spiritual belief, but rather as a political strategy, a tool for social control. At the Council of Nicaea, many alternative Christian doctrines were declared heretical and banned, while an official doctrine of the Christian faith was established. This raises another mystery. How many of these decisions were directly influenced by the emperor, shaping the religion to suit his interests? Constantine and the Christian leaders of the time laid the foundations for an institution that would not only survive, but thrive for millennia. Conspiracy theories suggest that the Catholic Church, from the very beginning, was a political project created to centralize power in Rome and maintain control over the masses. Some even claim that the ideals of faith and salvation were manipulated and distorted to serve the interests of an elite. From this perspective, the true creation of the Catholic Church was not a divine act, but the result of pragmatic and perhaps even dark political decisions. Then comes the question that echoes through the halls of history. Was Constantine the true founder of Catholicism, or was there something or someone behind him pulling the strings of this powerful institution? The answer to this question takes us to a complex web of conspiracies, secrets, and hidden agreements. The Catholics emerged as the greatest force in Western religion, but at what cost? Was their power based on hidden interests cloaked under the guise of faith? Or was their origin truly inspired by a divine mission, guided by the teachings of Christ and his apostles? While the Council of Nicaea consolidated the official doctrine of the Church, many believed that there were more powerful forces than Emperor Constantine involved in the formation of the Catholic Church. For some conspiracy theorists, the rise of the Church as an organized institution was not just the result of a visionary emperor, but also of hidden influences that worked behind the scenes to shape history according to their interests. According to these theories, even before Christianity was consolidated, secret societies and mysterious orders were already operating to overshadow the idea that Christianity was used as a political tool to unify the Roman Empire. It is hypothesized that there was a network of influences outside the church, involving not only political figures, but also secret groups seeking to control the destiny of the empire, and consequently, the course of history. Some say these Western groups were precursors to societies that would later stand out in history, like the Templars and even the Illuminati. But the connections between these societies and the church go much further back than their rise to power. Hidden and apocryphal writings suggest that early Christianity contained esoteric elements derived from earlier mystical traditions, such as Gnosticism and pagan myth cults. However, these ideas were suppressed at the Council of Nicaea, where more convenient doctrines for imperial control were chosen as the foundation of Christianity. Additionally, there is evidence that certain rituals and symbols used by the Church over the centuries have pre-Christian origins, raising the question of whether the Christian faith was adapted and shaped by these hidden forces to serve a greater and darker purpose. Some historians point to the use of ancient symbols like the cross, which had been used long before Christianity in pagan rituals associated with power and death. These elements transformed Christianity as we know it. Defenders of these theories suggest that the creation of the Catholic Church was, in part, an effort to eliminate the more dangerous ramifications of early doctrines that emphasized spiritual autonomy and direct connection with the divine, doctrines which were suppressed as the Church became the sole intermediary between God and man. This not only consolidated the Church's religious power, but also its political power. One of the greatest mysteries surrounding the creation of the Church is related to the disappearance of certain ancient texts during the process of unifying Christian doctrine. Many written Gospels that did not fit the new official model were declared heretical and destroyed. Some of these texts, such as the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, offered a view of Christianity that was very different from what was canonized by the Catholic Church. These writings resurfaced only centuries later, challenging the traditional narrative of the Church and suggesting that the true message of Christ was intentionally suppressed. Other theorists point to the figure of Peter the Apostle, whom the Catholic Church considers its first pope. It is believed that the choice of Peter as the foundational figure of the Church was a carefully orchestrated move to legitimize the power of the institution. After all, why did the Church not choose Paul, whose influence on the spread of Christianity was immense? Some claim that the choice of Peter served specific interests because he was seen as a more malleable figure, aligned with the objectives of Constantine and the early church leaders. This control over the narratives and the elimination of divergent ideas solidified the Church as the sole source of truth, both spiritual and political, within the Roman Empire. Thus, as Christianity became the dominant religion, those who questioned or challenged the power of the Church were quickly silenced. What was truly at stake was an original form of Christianity that could have posed a threat to the state. If so, who would have been interested in shaping it to serve their purposes or the interests of a ruling elite? These questions lead us to consider an even more intriguing scenario. From its early foundations, the Catholic Church was designed to be a tool of control over faith, politics, and the destiny of millions of people around the world. The rise of the Church may have been just the first step in a much larger plan orchestrated by forces that continue to operate in the shadows to this day. With the Catholic Church established as the main spiritual authority in the Western world, its relationship with temporal power, rulers, and the aristocracy became increasingly complex. One of the main features of this relationship was the use of religion as a mechanism of social control. For some conspiracy theorists, Christianity was not just adopted by kings and monarchs. It was designed to reinforce their power and ensure the submission of the masses. At the heart of this theory is the notion that the Church and the Roman emperors forged an alliance based on controlling the religious narrative. The Christian doctrine, although designed to be the official religion of the empire, would have been altered to ensure that people believed in a strict social hierarchy with the emperor, or later the pope, at the top, legitimized by God. One of the most emblematic episodes of this church-state alliance was the so-called donation of Constantine. According to legend, Emperor Constantine, before his death, granted vast territories and powers to Pope Sylvester and the Church of Rome. This document served for centuries as justification for the Church's power, granting it not only spiritual authority, but also political and territorial power. However, centuries later, during the Renaissance, the document was revealed to be a forgery. But if it was false, who created it, and for what purpose? For many theorists, the forgery of the donation of Constantine is evidence of a well-organized conspiracy within the Church to secure its dominance over the Christian world. Who was behind this manipulation? Some speculate it was a secret faction within the Church itself that saw an opportunity to expand the institution's temporal power and orchestrated the fraud. Others claim the papacy knew of the document's falsity but deliberately used it to reinforce its control over European monarchs. These conspiracies deepen when examining the Church's role in the coronation and dethroning of kings. From the early Middle Ages, the papacy held the authority to legitimize royalty by performing coronations, which were seen as manifestations of divine will. This practice raises a troubling question. If the Church had the power to crown kings, how much control did it have over the destinies of nations? A classic example of this interference is the case of the Holy Roman Empire, where the emperor was crowned by the Pope, establishing a symbiosis between temporal and spiritual power. However, this relationship was not always peaceful. There were several moments when popes and emperors clashed in a struggle for supreme control. One of the most famous examples was the investiture controversy in the 11th century, when Pope Gregory VII excommunicated Emperor Henry IV, who was forced to submit to papal power in the famous Walk to Canossa episode. But these disputes may have been part of a larger conspiracy. There are theories that suggest these clashes between popes and emperors were, in many cases, political performances meant to keep the population calm and distracted from the real centers of power. According to these theories, both the Church and the monarchs secretly collaborated, each playing their part in maintaining the social order that guaranteed their interests. Control over education and culture was also one of the Church's most powerful tools. For centuries, the Church itself was the only source of knowledge for much of the European population, controlling schools and universities. The Palatine School, created by Charlemagne and overseen by clergy, is an example of how education was used to promote the Church's ideas and ensure that secular knowledge aligned with Catholic doctrine. Furthermore, the scribes responsible for transcribing texts played a crucial role in preserving and disseminating knowledge. However, many believe these monks did not just transcribe religious texts, but also subtly altered them, removing or modifying passages that could challenge the Church's authority. This control over the flow of information allowed the Church to not only shape people's faith, but also influence philosophical, scientific, and historical thought throughout Europe. Medieval defenders of this theory suggest that the Church erased many texts and knowledge that could have changed the course of history. Heretical manuscripts, works of scientific study that contradicted the Church's opinion, and even philosophical writings that challenged the established hierarchy. These were systematically destroyed or erased. One of the most famous cases is that of Galileo Galilei, who proposed a heliocentric view of the universe and was condemned by the Church. But did the Church truly believe that the heliocentric theory was heretical? Or were there deeper interests in maintaining the geocentric view that reinforced the idea of a divine hierarchy with the Pope at its center? Whether through document forgery, manipulation of historical narratives, or control over knowledge, the Church consolidated its power over the centuries, establishing a lasting alliance with the ruling elites. But the question remains, were these actions part of a deliberate plan to control the fate of humanity? As the Catholic Church established itself as a dominant institution, it not only controlled the political destinies of nations, but also had a profound impact on people's daily lives. The Church's power extended far beyond spiritual matters, influencing how individuals saw the world and how they interacted with it. One of the most effective tools the Church used to maintain control was the Inquisition, an institution created to identify and eradicate heresy. Although many know the Inquisition as a series of tribunals designed to persecute witches and heretics, its true purpose, according to conspiracy theorists, was to keep the population under control and ensure that any challenge to the authority of the Church was swiftly silenced. During the 10th and 12th centuries, the Inquisition, under the leadership of the Dominicans and Franciscans, established a network of espionage and surveillance through many trials, carrying out brutal periods of repression. Individuals were forced to confess crimes they had not committed, with physical and psychological torture used to obtain these confessions. These extreme methods were justified by the fear of heresy that could undermine the authority of the Church. As a result, the social order was maintained. However, there are theories suggesting that the Inquisition was more than just a tool for spiritual control. For some, the Inquisition represented a deliberate strategy to eliminate any form of critical thinking that could threaten the authority of the Church. Books and manuscripts that questioned the official doctrine were burned, and many intellectuals were silenced. Some of the texts lost during this time could have offered an alternative view of religion and history, challenging the truths established by the Church. Beyond direct repression, the Church also used censorship and propaganda to shape public perception. Through art and literature, it promoted a worldview that supported its interests. For example, in painting, images of saints and miracles reinforced the idea of divine intervention and the need for an earthly intermediary, the Pope, to achieve salvation. During the Renaissance, the Church was also responsible for financing grand works of art and architecture, such as St. Peter's Cathedral and the works of Michelangelo. Although today these works are admired for their artistic and historical value, some argue their primary function was to promote the magnificence of the Church and consolidate its power before the population. This ostentation of wealth and power helped create an image of authority and legitimacy that defied any criticism. Another critical strategy employed was the manipulation of holidays. Religious dates and pagan celebrations were adapted and incorporated into the Christian calendar to facilitate the conversion of people who already had their own traditions. For example, the celebration of Christmas was placed around the same period as pagan solstice festivals, and Easter coincided with pagan spring festivities. This integration of ancient rituals helped soften resistance and created a cultural framework that seemed natural and inevitable. But the Church's influence was not limited to Europe. The European expansion of the 15th century led the Church to intervene in new lands, such as the Americas. The forced conversion of indigenous peoples and the imposition of the Christian faith were accompanied by violence and oppression. The mission to convert the pagans often served as a justification for colonization and the looting of lands. However, some argue that the Church's social control was not an accidental consequence, but the result of a meticulous plan to ensure its survival and dominance. The Church knew that the only way to maintain its power was to adapt and shape society over the centuries. Thus, its actions can be seen as a deliberate strategy to create a world order that functioned according to its interests. Over the centuries, the Church played a crucial role in the formation of Western society. Its methods of control and social influence helped shape the worldview of millions of people. But if we look beyond the facade of sanctity and morality, we may wonder how far the Church was willing to go to preserve its power, and what secrets remain hidden beneath the surface of official history. As we explore the complexities of the Catholic Church's influence throughout the centuries, we reach a crossroads that may challenge our most basic perceptions of history. The power and control exerted by the Church were not only the result of its position, but according to some theories, they were the outcome of a deliberate strategy to shape the world in its image. In the Middle Ages and during the early modern period, the Church faced new challenges to its authority, with the rise of reformist movements and growing criticism of its power. The Protestant Reformation, led by figures such as Martin Luther and John Calvin, represented a significant threat to the Church's hegemony. The subsequent split not only divided Europe religiously, but also highlighted the fragility of papal authority in the face of organized resistance. During this tumultuous period, some theories suggest that the Church began to adopt more subtle methods to maintain its influence. The Counter-Reformation and the establishment of the Jesuits stood out as strategies to restore and expand the Church's influence, with a more diplomatic and intellectual focus on education and peaceful conversion rather than direct force. But it is speculated that in addition to these visible strategies, there were more secret and esoteric maneuvers. The Illuminati, a secret society that emerged in the late 17th century, is mentioned in these theories as a possible faction operating in the shadows, seeking to influence the destiny of humanity. They are often associated with theories about the control and manipulation of hidden elites. Some theorists suggest that although the Illuminati are generally seen as a separate entity from the Church, their rise may have been a continuation of efforts to ensure that a ruling elite maintained control over the historical narrative and political destiny. Furthermore, the recent discovery of documents and records, such as those found in the Vatican Secret Archive, raises new questions about the Church's role in crucial historical events worldwide. These documents, long considered inaccessible, may contain evidence that challenges established historical narratives and reveal a plot of control and manipulation that extends to the present day. The true climax of the conspiracy theory may lie in the notion that the creation and evolution of the Catholic Church were only the beginning of a long-term strategy aimed at controlling not just people's spirituality, but also their understanding of the world. If the Church really shaped the course of history to serve its own agenda, then the questions that emerge are profound. What are the true intentions of the leaders and institutions that influence our perception of reality? How aware are we of the forces operating behind the scenes, shaping our beliefs and decisions? The mystery surrounding the creation of the Catholic Church, with its intricate web of political, social, and spiritual interests, leaves many questions unanswered. To uncover the truth, we must look to the past. It's important to recognize that the truth may be far more complex and unsettling than the simplified versions of history we've been taught. The history we know is just one layer. There are countless others that could change our understanding of what truly occurred. We've now reached the end of this investigative journey into the creation of the Catholic Church and its complex networks of power and influence within the broader narrative. What we've uncovered paints an intriguing picture where truth and fiction often intertwine, leaving us to question what's real and what may have been manipulated. Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. What's your take on the Church's influence throughout history? Do you believe there are deeper truths still hidden, waiting to be discovered? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories and theories that challenge the mainstream narrative. Thank you for joining us. Here, the mystery never ends, and the search for truth continues. Stay tuned for more revelations and keep questioning the world around you. Until next time.